Hello.
Hello.
My name is Chemy, and this is my podcast, The Miracle of Abstraction. And today, my guest is Fernando A Nóbrega Santos. He is a doctor in physics, a mathematician, a fellow at the Dutch Institute for Emergence Phenomena, DEEP in short, and a fellow at the Institute for Advanced Studies at University of Amsterdam. Thank you for being here, Fernando.
Thanks, my pleasure. Thanks for all watching this.
Yeah. So first question is kind of fixed here. So I'm curious, what is the last thing that you learned and you went, whoa?
Wow. I'm a very curious person, so that happens a lot. So then I never put a memory on that. But probably last seminar, like, because we run these weekly seminars, and then every week I try to get a wow from a seminar. So there's information theory, relations between information theory and statistical physics that we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
But if I come to something that was more like beyond my everyday life, I tell, but for now, I enjoy to have this so much that I cannot come with one.
Okay. Do you remember something very specific from yesterday?
Yeah, so there were two talks that were yesterday. One, that's this group in Japan that tracks zebrafish, and I was very impressed by the fact that you can use information theory to model how through zebrafish they fight, so to say, like it's not a real fight, but how they dwell. That was nice. And for the other talk was to know that in the language of information theory, there are lots of analogies between statistical physics and information theory, especially what was presented today about the chemical reactions and how can you model chemical reaction has in the language of information theory.
Okay.
But maybe for the audience it looks like a bit too technical, so I'm ashamed I cannot. This is the
but I believe that it is always hard to follow what you don't know, and most things you don't know because there are so many things. Yeah. So it is natural that we should have some tolerance to listening to something that we don't know, but I'm curious, how do you experience finding something new and then going, whoa?
Yeah,
like,
so
how does it change your mood and your behavior?
I am a very curious person since kid. So now, just to come back to, now I had a wall that was beyond my threshold. Like, I'm driven by having high curiosity everyday life. Like, I think it keeps your mind still awake and less bored.
Okay.
But the one that I experienced this wall was when I was like having lunch in the department last week, and I realized there is a seminar that there is now a new field that you can make proofs with the computer. Like
Are you talking about the Lean seminar?
The Lean seminar.
Yes.
So that's because, like as you say, I'm working in so many departments that I go like sometimes to meetings in neuroscience, in physics, in mathematics. And then one of the days I was having lunch only with mathematicians, everyone was commenting about this Lean seminar, and I got really excited that this is possible, not only for the fact that you can prove, but it can help a lot of other applications. But so that maybe is beyond other things I got.
I'm taking part in this seminar.
And how I do experience, I think I have somehow some bursts of adrenaline, like that I get really. My whole body get like, you say, how is this experience? Like, if I see that something is new, my whole body gets some sort of burst of adrenaline, and I have lots of questions about what I don't know, and try to connect to what I know. So that's perhaps that's how you do when you're a kid. I don't know. I'm not a kid for a while, but I've been doing that since I'm a kid. So
okay, and you just didn't stop.
Yes,
because hopefully. That's what we associate with being a kid. Like they ask, why?
Yeah, I had.
And people who don't stop asking why become scientists sometimes.
Yes. If you don't stop asking why, become a little bit more resilient, and also do the hard and the boring part together with the why, then you can become a scientist, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so you already mentioned that this is like a natural state of how you perform in the world. like this curiosity-driven since kid. Do you remember what was your the earliest wow that you can recognize as pushing you onto the path that you are right now? Because right now you are quite well accomplished applied mathematician, and if you were curiosity driven, what were the points to bring you on this path to reach this point?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Do you have such points?
I have some memories. I have multiple of those variables. I think it's not unique, but I may say, because you asked for the first, that I remember, I'm a mid sibling. My sister is 4 years older than me, and my brother is 2 years younger than me. And she was maybe 6 or 7, mounting these 500-piece puzzles, but I wanted to be with her, and I was 3 mounting these puzzles, and then everyone was impressed because I could do that, and I was very impressed that I also could, because I thought, oh, this is a big kids game, but I just wanted to be with her.
So going for the big game.
Yeah. So then we play this a lot. So that's kind of I used to also my family, I'm Brazilian, by the way. So Brazilian families are much bigger. So my dad has 10 brothers and sisters. I have about 40 or 50 cousins. And in terms of where I am in the order, I'm a mid cousin. I have half of my cousins are older than me, half are younger. And then if you want to play with the big ones, you need to know a bit more than your age. So I was always for playing. I had this drive. Okay, this is nice. I want to learn more because I want to play with my cousins. I always took it very social.
Okay.
Which is very weird for a mathematician. I'm so sorry. That's the cliche of a mathematician. That's the guy who sits at midnight with his paper and dreams about the world, and then when he's in the department, he just stares to the wall with your formulas. I also enjoy this, but the social part I enjoy a lot.
Okay.
So that's one thing. And in terms of facts, I've been my parents divorced very early, so I was with my dad for only with my dad since I was 4 or so, and he had no time. He is actually a doctor. He had no time to stay with me and my brother and sister. So we had some nanny that had to coach us in science 4 hours a day.
Okay.
So that was.
If you have so many siblings and cousins, then you get a lot of help. The old saying goes that it takes a village to raise a child. It's not the sole job of parents.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and this nanny, because it was how can you entertain a kid for 4 hours with education? Most of the hours we want to play. So she always played when she was teaching me, what you had to read. Now it's in Wikipedia, but we had to read every day one section on encyclopedia. You have to write essay. You have to do some mathematics. It was always a game. So then
I find this answer very wonderful, quite beautiful. So you were inspired by all these older cousins and siblings to join the game, but then it required to catch up to some extent. But it was not demotivating. It was actually inspiring you. But they were also helpful. So it was a lot of play. So I think I can conclude that you likely to oh, this is great, to go something oh, this is a new topic, this is great, I don't understand, but then there are people there, I can join them, and then they will help me, this will be a lot of fun. Is it something that how you feel? Because this is what I hear in the story.
Yes, and that's kind of how I end up working now, because a DEEP is an interdisciplinary center, and there are experts in all topics from psychology to string theory. And then the projects are interdisciplinary, and we always uncomfortable that you don't know everything, because in mono topics you are the expert, you know the dot of the dot, the really every single detail, and in the interdisciplinary project you know one aspect of the project, but you don't know the other aspect. So it can be very challenging for a standard monodisciplinary scientist, because you have to feel comfortable of being uncomfortable. So you have to always be exposed to things that you don't know, and this will happen very often, and it's very uncomfortable for most scholars, and that's one of the reasons that some people don't like interdisciplinarity.
Because if you're an expert, specialized expert in one topic, then you know everything.
Yeah.
And if something new is added to the knowledge, you just learn it and you still know everything.
Yeah.
But if the basic premise of interdisciplinary and like just understanding the world in total is that you just cannot know everything.
Yeah, so you have to assume that you don't know anything and you know enough to make the bridge, and you're in a place where you can connect with friends, let's say the analogy with my family, and also school friends was also like that, that can make the bridge together. And then you can give your best for things that you know and hope for your colleagues to also give your best. And of course, that creates a lot of pain in the writing the paper. Projects takes a bit longer because some people in one topic don't understand well the other topic and vice versa. So it creates some pitfalls, but it is also a lot of fun.
Yeah. And there are obstacles, but there are opportunities in every approach. And then one is required to manage all the things that emerge from this approach.
Yeah.
Okay, this is wonderful. So this was how you experienced curiosity, how you go, drive, and then eventually you got into doctor program. And I never left Europe, so I do not know. But what I know about Europe is that the doctor programs are quite uniform here from country to country. They can change with some small details, but more or less they are uniform how they go. How does doctor programs go in Brazil? Is it like well-established programs, easily accessible, or is it harder, or how is it going?
Well, that's a nice question. I thought a little bit about this, like also how the place I did my PhD is special for me and these kind of things. There are some difference, like I could spend the whole topic of the podcast on this, but I try to summarize. So at least in Netherlands, it's most of the time granted based. Like some professor gets a grant on a topic, and then the grant sponsors a PhD, and then you have an opening, and then you already do a PhD in a topic. And in Brazil, the grants for PhDs are institutional. So you don't apply as a scholar, but your department, based on the quality of the department, applies or already get in a regular basis a number of PhD positions. And there are public openings, and you do usually an exam on the topic and an interview on the topic and recommendation letters on the topic, but it's not the topic of a PhD defense, but the topic in a broader sense, like physics, maths, computer science, etc. So there's a national, nowadays, in my time there was no such a thing, there's a national exam on physics and a national exam on mathematics that qualifies you for PhD. They also do that for economics. So you submit your score for this exam, like your CV and some letters, and then you get ranked for PhD. And once you are in a PhD, you have 1 year or so to choose your topic and your supervisor.
Okay, but how many years do you have in total?
You have an average 4 years.
Okay.
And then like the first year you do some courses and you just figure out which topic you want and choose your supervisor. So in a way, I had the privilege that when I was working in Brazil, I didn't need to write grants for my PhDs, but I need to give good classes or be a good colleague so that they choose me, because instead here, the professor with the fund, they choose who they want to hire for PhD. In Brazil, the students most of the time choose the supervisors. So you have to give a good class.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
So I guess it goes like you have classes, you know your professors, and then you go and you ask, would you be my supervisor?
Yeah.
But you say, I kind of felt the tone that, can they refuse? Of course they can refuse.
They can refuse, but it's expected that you supervise a minimum number of PhDs. You cannot refuse forever, but what happens is some people that are already overbooked with students, they refuse, and people who need somehow students to also perform your research, they accept. But it's a bit, the leverage is more balanced than here. Like the leverage is also in the student, but it's not fully in the student, because he, of course, as a supervisor, you can refuse. But that's in a way how the system works in average in Brazil. And that can be really nice, but that you can also lose a little bit of focus. there are some gaps because, as you know, Brazil has 200 million people. It's a continent in its own.
Brazil is actually huge. I have a Brazilian best friend, and once she shared something about like the distances between two cities meeting, like long distance cousins, and then she showed me a map of overlaying Brazil and Europe, and the size is the same. This is enormous.
But so that you ask about the different levels. So there is an accreditation level of your PhD within the Brazilian government. So every 4 or 5 years, the Brazilian government makes an evaluation on the PhDs, and you have scores. I don't understand why the numbers are this way, but the quality goes from 3 to 7. So 3 is a very bad PhD program. 4 is a bad PhD program, and 7 is the international excellence high-level PhD. And there are multiple historical and economical political factors that make those distribution of programs in Brazil quite heterogeneous. I had the privilege to do a PhD in a program that was level 7. But,
Whoa. Are there many such programs? Or back then?
Back then there was like 4 or 5, but in a country of 200 million, that's not a lot. And in mathematics, because I did a PhD in theoretical physics, in mathematics there are 2 or 3 programs. So one in IMPA, one in Ceará, one in São Paulo, as far as I remember.
Okay.
But so that also, because I had my life always flipping between physics and maths. Like one of the choices I made for physics was because where I come from, the closest level 7 PhD was in physics. I really didn't know whether I should do physics or math, but that made a clear choice. Like even though I work a lot in mathematics, for the PhD it was very clear. This is an international level PhD. Mathematics was level 6, so it was not that bad, but still.
That's still not 7.
Yeah, but in a way, that was my choice. But it's a very beautiful story that is because this goes online. I wanted to share is that there are multiple reasons why a program became 6 or 7, and where I come from is Recife in Pernambuco. Was a place that hosted a group of between 5 and 10 mathematicians that they were refugees from the Portuguese dictatorship. So there was a guy called Ruy Luís Gomes, and he was the head of the Mathematics Society of Portugal and the most known mathematician in Portugal, and he was also candidate for presidency in Portugal against Salazar, and of course then he was arrested for 10 years. He published papers in prison in Portugal. And
really?
If you go to Porto, there's a museum about him.
Whoa!
Like in the maths department in Porto.
I have my whoa moment now.
So that he published papers. Like you can go in maths department in Porto, and there is a last floor of the maths department. There is a space dedicated for him with this story. I'm just advertising. But so he was 10 years in prison, and he still did mathematics, correspondence, papers, etc. He also trained the prisoners in mathematics. And then when he was freed, he decided to leave Portugal, and he left to exactly where I studied. And the Brazilian government, the local people back in the time realized he was a excellent scientist, and there was no science in that level in Brazil. They sponsored this Portuguese mathematician to create physics and mathematics. By chance, he was a mathematical physicist, by the way. A physics and mathematics program in Recife, and that make the development of the region in physics and mathematics really fast and really high level. He connected the city with the whole world of mathematics. But it's in a place that I really love it, but it's much more known by Carnival and by the beaches. But it's an island of excellence. But it's like there are some places. Each place has your own history. I only know my own history. Yeah. But there was and then basically when I was there, this professor was already back to Portugal. If not, he already passed away. I don't know exactly when he passed away.
But he already established a place that could bring you.
Yeah, exactly. And many of my colleagues, many of my colleagues that studied there, they are doing their career abroad.
Okay.
But like, if you ask, who is this? Where is this place? And then you can never connect with Brazil. It's very big, but I can raise 5-10 people that are having careers abroad, and they just very excellent training where you only know that these exist if you're from Brazil, because it's like not too many cities.
I didn't know about it.
Yes, if you want to find the link of this guy, you can put in the description
Sure,
of the video. I can
sure.
send it,
You can send it me. I can advertise this museum and this history.
Yeah, it will be in Portuguese probably, but still.
I mean, this is just a small sparkle, but this will be like a ripple, expanding more and more.
Yeah.
First one person, and then their heritage, and it goes.
Yeah. And basically, this mathematician, he got 10 students, 5 in physics, 5 in maths, and those 10 people, they create the physics and maths research back then. One of those 5 was my PhD advisor.
Whoa!
So he got this.
What was his name?
Ruy Luís Gomes.
Ruy
Luís Gomes.
Ruy Luís Gomes.
Yeah.
So he is your academic grandfather.
Yes, somehow, yeah. At least in that level, because you can get grandfathers at the PhD supervision, master supervision, etc. But at PhD level,
Yeah, according to Genealogy Project, it comes only at the PhD level.
So my PhD supervisor, he did his PhD outside Recife, but for the undergrad level and for creating this department, he was coached by this mathematician.
Okay. Some gyms
were passed. There's some second degree grandfather also,
Wonderful. And then you entered, you did your PhD, and then you follow your curiosity to go this place, that place. You were like at reading your biography, your bio at your website. I learned that you did your job in the Brazil, then you went to Europe, but then weirdly enough, you are one of few people who not only do like mathematics, physics, but you like spent some years in a hospital.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more how it is? What a mathematician do in a hospital?
Yeah, you have to also follow your personal life. There are many hidden stories. So when I was finishing my PhD, Brazil was in a very good curve, like growing exponentially, not exponentially, but a very high rate. In contrast to Europe and US, because I finished my PhD 2009, was just after the 2008 crisis. But as everyone knows, like commodities came really high during that time, and Brazil is a big commodity country. So the economy was doing very well, and the former government created about 10,000 positions, which was a great opportunity for me because I got a professorship just after my PhD. But those 10,000 positions was attached to the expansion of the educational system, because the educational system in Europe is kind of stable, but Brazil has a lot of people that are still not educated, so you need a big expansion to educate 200 million people, then I was part of this expansion moment.
Okay.
But that required a lot of teaching, so I had to teach a lot in the first years of my PhD, and that's I did 3-4 years in the math department doing that, and then I got a grant to do to UK one international experience in Oxford, and there I was supposed to go back to Brazil, but I also met my current partner, and she has a PhD in Amsterdam just afterwards, because her supervisor in Oxford moves to Amsterdam, and then I cannot read in the bio this part. I cannot put my personal bio, that's how you hope. And I check all the topics that people do in Amsterdam, and related to my previous topics, which is topology. I think the medical science are a really good match. So I end up meeting the neuroscience department at UMC, and I had a very good time there. Like, as you say, 3 years in the hospital. I was, the mathematician of the network neuroscience group. And they are very good in networks, but once the networks are feasible and the mathematics is already there to make new implementations, I think they needed a mathematician. It was a great time. I can say, I was telling you before, I'm probably one of the few people who did a PhD in mathematical physicist and participate in a brain dissection in a brain anatomy class. So I did 2 times a brain dissection, or
So
autopsy.
you've seen the real brain?
Yes, twice the full one, the full, participate in a full anatomy class or an autopsy.
Okay, so one was alive, one was dead.
Both were dead.
Oh, okay, both were dead.
And other moments we can just see neuronal cells stuff, but this was a wow moment for me.
Wow!
Because you ask, when we have the wow?
Yeah. Have you touched it?
Yes. With a glove.
Yes.
But it was a wow moment for like the first 15, 20 minutes. At some point, there was also a nearly puking moment because, of course,
I can imagine.
In some moments, like I think if I tell now, maybe like the meninges. At some point, the meninges, the membrane that protects your brain from the school. I think you have 3 meninges, and one of the meninges you have to peel when you dissect. This is a bit, you have a feeling a bit disgusting because you're peeling the brain. So that moment I felt not so nice, but the rest was amazing because I work a lot with topology, and it's known that the white matter fibers are the cables in the brain. If you think, of course, it's a crude approximation, like if you think the brain as a supercomputer with processors, etc., is beyond that, but if you approximate it this way, your cortex are the processors. The core of the brain, like the subcortex, should be your motherboard somehow, and the cables is in the middle, the white matter. And the wow moment I had in the dissections, if you make just a slice, you don't see it. It's just a piece of meat with some fat. But if you cut in the fiber bundle, like for the mathematician, the fiber bundle is something exists in the brain. It's not only something you learn in maths. And I'm happy to have.
What I believe fiber bundle is named after clothes.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that's fibers in clothes.
Yeah, maybe. But in neuroanatomy books, if you Google
there
the term,
exists real fiber bundles.
Yeah, if you get a book on neuroanatomy, there will be a term called fiber bundles. And that's the moment.
Are they isomorphic to ordinary fiber bundles?
Yeah. So basically, because your mid part of your brain has lots of white matter fibers that connects the different cortical areas. So then if you do an anatomy class that you want to show to the students, in that case or to me, the fiber bundles, you should not slice the brain like that. You should scrape the brain in the same direction of the fiber bundle, so that when you see lots of fibers connecting different areas, and then oh my God, this is really a graph for a mathematician, or a hypergraph, or whatever simplex you want to see. So
you can see that this should be that?
Yes, because you open the thing, you see the cortex connected to another part of the cortex, and lots of fibers connecting. Like if you would have computers and lots of cables connecting the sensors in the computer, like in old big computers, you would have lots of cables connecting different sensors in a computer. Okay. So if you're an anatomy class, of course there are way more things than the Professor Antonio, if he sees anytime, like and Pete. So I do this too fast. So they explain a lot of the function of each part of the cortex, but when you want to talk about connectivity, that is interesting for topology. Then you have to check the white matter fibers, like that. That's really astonishing.
I have a question more about this, because now you said that you pretty much can see that this structure works well for the brain, and I prepared a question because I know that you are a mathematician who studies brain using mathematical methods, and you're one of the few who actually seen the real brain, and you saying that the methods that we're using, you actually can open the brain and see that they match well.
Yeah.
Because my question was more like, the brain is complicated, as you said, we're just approximating with some ideas, with metaphors from computer science, we approximate it in one way or another. And recently people got a Nobel Prize in physics for that.
Nice, hopefully,
But it is, for someone who never seen the brain, for me, it is not clear that graphs or hypergraphs or any mathematics at all is helpful to study the brain. But you say that you can see it in the structure of it. This is fascinating. But I would expect that this is just a guess and this works, so we continue. But you say that there is something deeper, like you can actually experience that this structure is there.
Yeah. There was a one moment where I experienced mathematics on the reality. Like, this is a discrete structure with a high-dimensional discrete structure that could be what I could model. Like, of course, I'm talking to audience of mathematicians. If I talking to a doctor, they will say this is much more than that. It's not only that, but if you would encode what you see in the brain, a discrete structure would be a very nice way to encode. But like, if you go to a bigger picture, let's say the brain falls into a category of a complex system, like, and complex systems is another field in its own. And there are many ways to define a complex system, but I would stick to the one that is more friendly to what I used to do. Like, when you don't know the underlying dynamics or underlying variables of your complex systems, you can, in a system that the dynamics is very complicated, intricate, and you cannot write equations for that system that you trust that are the real equations.
Okay.
You could call this a complex system. And in that framework...
So what you say, the brain is a complex system.
Yeah.
So before we continue, can you give us like 2 more examples of complex systems, just to have like some pictures what this label refers to?
Could be the complement, everything where you cannot write precisely the equations for the dynamics and describe exactly the Hamiltonian dynamics, phase space, etc.
Okay.
Where you cannot see it, could be a complex system. That there are books and 1 million different definitions, but then I can tell you what the classic complex system people study, like the brain is one of the most famous ones, financial markets, social dynamics, genetic, broader sense, like protein interactions, just to name a few. But to fall within this category is a bit loose, but it's when you cannot come with an equation for the dynamics.
Okay, I think, thank you. So brain is a complex system.
Yeah, and then you want a technique to encode the information for a complex system. So many people approach complex system in different ways. Some people, I think, try to create a model that fits a complex system. Of course, a very complicated task. Or you can come up with mathematical methods that are robust to investigate a complex system, either in a modeling way or in a data-driven way. So then the methods should be, in a way, independent of the choice of coordinates, invariant against noise, so that if you encode the data that you see in a complex system, you have certain properties that they are handy because of the messiness of the complex system. And that's how many people try out topology, because all these invariance properties on topology, or many invariants are really somehow independent on the way you represent your discrete structure. So then if you encode information about the brain has a graph or a simplicial complex or a hypergraph, it should be relatively robust in comparison to other ways of modeling the brain. Okay. But yes, there is a big gap, so it's not unanimous that you can just do it this way, but it's already a field with nearly 30 years old. I don't know the exactly start of how can you call this. All this field is called network neuroscience. So when you really encode graphs, brains into graphs, so you encode what you see in the brain into a graph. But it has a field with conference, books, regular publications, etc. It's a field with 30 years old. So it's very exciting. But of course now it gets exponentially more advanced because way more mathematicians are in the game.
Is the network of scientists studying the brain a complex system?
Probably. They also another complex system is that they study a lot. So because one thing that many things are complex systems, but they are so complex that you cannot study them. So you need to go to the simplest complex system, or at least the complex system where you can study them. So one complex system, the collaboration network. So the data, people who we collaborate with, is good empirical data to model a complex system, because it's more like a hypergraph, because let's say if you have a paper among 3 people, it's not obvious that you have papers between 2 people or the pairs, so you don't have a simplistic structure.
Yeah, it is not.
But this actually is a field in complex systems, like the collaboration network.
Ooh.
So, but in a way, some people are specialized in specific complex system, and then all the models and techniques they focus in one complex system. Other people prefer to study like specific techniques within applied mathematics to complexity, and then you test it in multiple databases.
Okay.
So I'm in between the two. So most of my projects are in my recent project are in neuroscience, but I recently also started to apply techniques that I like in finance with Felix. And all the papers I also work in protein networks, even more recently, I still don't have any output, but I just started like this month in social networks.
Okay. So you're finding friends, you're finding domains, and your curiosity goes.
Yeah, for your curiosity. That's totally good advice. There is one thing that I struggle now. If you follow your curiosity and you make many friends, you go with the flow a lot, which can be very nice, but then you can also lose your focus. So in a way, one thing...
Too many things to do.
Too many things to do in parallel. So then you get a bit hyperactive, that I'm a little bit hyperactive. So that's like one risk. Like if you go interdisciplinary to get 1 million friends with few million projects, it's very fast.
Yeah, and then the time and focus is a finite resource.
Yeah.
So dividing by 1 million is like usually very small number.
Yeah. So I recently don't look for projects anymore because the project looks for me.
So what do you do when you find a new project like, yes, I want this to be developed, but I don't have time? What do you do with such a thing?
I say that. But like in the past, because I had so eagerness, I also, especially, let's say, in more younger stage of your career, you were always eager to push more projects and stuff that can create a lot of nice things, but they can also make burnouts also. But in the past, I was more open to multiple projects, and now I can make a debate and say, look, I have already this in my plate. I cannot do more, and sometimes I feel pity because then would be a great opportunity, but I cannot. But because I'm in a very big team now, I can also forward it. Oh, look, this is very great. Maybe this scholar is a good match. Like I start to also think, okay, it is a good idea, but cannot fit in my plate anymore. Who is the person that actually is better than me for this? Is also good this skill that I try to go like now the meeting I was before now, I spotted, okay, there's one guy at Deep that could be much better than me to this project. I should inform that person so that
Okay, so it seems like a complex network emerging. Like you are already in a complex network. You know that something comes into your way, and you just don't eat this information. You just have to decide how to navigate, delegate it, and move forward.
Yeah.
So it's getting more complicated because then other people in this network will also get more connections and will end up with the same problem, and they have to also delegate.
Yeah. So it's like if it's an infinite chain, infinite system is fine, but because we are a finite system, it's a problem. But let's say from your individual perspective, I think the biggest challenge of my life was my first paper. Even though I have no idea how hard or how is externally, how good is externally. But like I had a very high barrier to be from a Brazilian culture, no one speak English, I didn't see many scientists. And then you get this challenge and my next biggest challenge is my second paper. And then you don't think so much about exactly what's your paper. Like you like if you do it because you love it or you like it, it's the purpose is relevant, but it's not the main driver.
Yeah.
Of course you have to do a project with purpose and must be the most important that you can make it. But if it's intrinsic because you like, you're happy that you can do a project that is fun. And then I have this level, and then a second level of, okay, how can I keep more projects, or how can I be a scientist that can make this in a regular basis? Like, okay, there's a scientific question, how can you use scientific method in a long-term run? Like I say, curiosity is a main ingredient, but it's like 1% inspiration, 99 transpiration. So then you have to also...
What do you mean by transpiration?
That's Einstein, I think, they say that. 1% inspiration, 99 transpiration. You have to make it happen in terms of a project work well. Like if it's only in the idea level to become a project, it's still
requires labor.
Yeah, it requires a lot of labor. So you have to balance inspiration and transpiration. And I think in the beginning, the challenge is like learn these skills, like which skills should you have as a scientist in current time that you can be secure, that you can lead the project, no matter the topic. And that took much longer than my PhD, and also it's about also how you perceive yourself as a scientist. And once this level established, you have time to choose, okay, my life is finite, which type of problems should I address my rest of life, or at least every 5 years I can change a little bit direction. And then, let's say, that's where I'm now. But then the risk is that if you in a complex network, basically your time is already taken by these all the projects. So it's but Fernando from today that's telling you if you would be
this is a Fernando who is a node in this network.
Yeah.
But as you say, being an isolated vertex that wants to join, it's a different game than being inside of this network already.
Yeah.
Joining a network is there are quite different strategies. As you said, what I took from this is that you advise people who want to join such a network to first find out what it is about and then contribute something, and to not overthink what they're doing. Just choose one project, finish one project, and then you have single connection into the network. And this will help. So make another connection. And then, because it is like a complex network, it will just, a few connections will already open to you the whole graph, pretty much.
Yes, I think we go to the field of, they call it science of science.
Science of science.
So they don't know if you heard about it, but there's a famous complex systems scholar called Barabasi. I think he wrote a popular book about that.
Whoa.
Maybe the title is Science of Science. I can send you this book.
Sure, I can send a name, the name somewhere.
Yeah, but I think Barabasi spent with his team a few projects to try to enumerate what's the statistically the most likely criteria to be a successful scientist, regardless of the topic. And of course, being in a network with good scientists is one of the most important criteria. But I would say content is also very relevant. Like it's more like we need to play the science life in a well-informed way. If you stick in your room alone in your own and make your paper, could be very nice, but also it's very hard to share.
Then connect with others and communicate that, because instead of like, here are my partial results, and then already people know it, so through osmosis they like get more softened to understand it. But if you out of nowhere just throw like, this is my result, 300 pages, then it is like out of nowhere, quite not isolated. Maybe I understand the first pages, but then there are like 200 pages out of it of reasonings. Like, even if it's correct, which still could not be, because isolated work is suspicious a bit of some sort. But then it is hard psychologically a bit to start reading something like that, which it is out of nowhere, isolated.
And also it's a bit counterintuitive, because let's say especially in pure maths and in topics that are more theoretical, because it's very common that you work in your own or with one person or two. So then it's a thing that most people are introspect, that you really sit and do in your own. And this thing of network, you should be comfortable to be also with multiple people, sharing your results with multiple people. So it's a bit of balance between introspection, extrospection or extroversion. Sorry.
I don't know what is the good term.
But in a way, if you do everything on your own, maybe you also, like, I think each person has your own trajectory. Could still be possible to do everything on your own and still work, but let's say statistically, you should do your best work, but you should also share with your colleagues about your work, and also be interested of questions from other people, that you're not the one that has the full curiosity. Like a shared curiosity is also important. So know what your colleague is curious about could also give you a little bit of curiosity, and you can have a better product than alone. But yeah, there's no full recipe, but I think the best to go into this topic is the science of science, because Barabasi and his team, they related many factors that could make you a great scientist in a way that's possibly independent of the topic. But because he's a network scientist, he advocates, apart from excellence, I think everyone should look for excellence, belong to a community on your topic that you think is meaningful and relevant and is doing great work. That's
Okay.
Yeah, and as you already explained, I'm now in a privileged position, and sometimes I come back home. Oh my God, I'm so privileged. Like I love my place, like in Recife, in Brazil. It's really high quality, but because Brazil is in the global south, it's very different and difficult to keep exchange with science that's happening in other countries and other continents. And then if you do science like in Europe, US, or continents that the activity is more connected and in a more fast pace, it's much...
yes, something about physical connectedness, closeness is important. It is weird because at the same time we have already the pandemic experience and we know that we can have everything online, but somehow it is hard to process information and understanding and share with each other what we care about and what we do, and to do this informal work that later we will make it more precise, but first we have to live in the shadows and these blurry situations. It's somehow easier to handle when you can meet the person in person.
And okay, the inequality I think decreased since internet also, because once the papers are online everywhere, every person in any part of the world can read, and also once the talks are online, any person can watch. But of course, the face-to-face interaction is much deeper than online interaction. And especially where I am now, of course, if you compare Global South to Global North, there is already big inequality and privileges. But I'm very lucky because the way UvA University of Amsterdam set up interdisciplinarity is through interdisciplinary centers where we run seminars in a weekly basis. So we, together with all the fellows, we run weekly seminars, and that is really face-to-face interaction with someone either from Netherlands or for the rest of Europe or the rest of the world in a weekly basis on specific research projects every week. And that, if you do one time, maybe you don't profit, but if you do it for like 2-3 years, at some point you have a good overview of all types of applied mathematics going on in the market, what's the most interesting programs, what's most promising projects. So this is that's what when I heard 12 minutes ago, what's my big privilege now is, oh my God, I'm part of these, that makes being applied mathematician so natural.
Yeah.
I just need to sit there. It's of course I was not born like that. I was born naked and then
and crying
like everyone. But in a way, it's a very, very privilege. I'm happy to say I have the job I want, and then it's just
good job. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
I have 2 more short questions.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
What's your next goal?
Wow, that's in what part of my life?
I do not know. I don't think that this is appropriate to ask for anything else than academical.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, so academics, maybe people say oh, you can split academia in 3 branches, can be differently, but your role as a teaching or training next generation of scientists, outreach, and your content-wise. So I think I can split these 3. So then I can talk, if you like, I can maybe think about each part.
Sure. What about the research?
Yeah, the research, as I was telling, I keep going into the flow. What brought me to Europe was a topic called topological data analysis, as most people already know. But when I was in Oxford, there was a center. There is still a center back then. Was just starting, led by Heather Harrington. That she's now at Max Planck, but she's still in Oxford. Okay. Then I was exposed to this topic, and when I moved to here, I started to work a lot in topics on topological data analysis. I still like it a lot, but I connected with information theory, and I start to realize that what's exciting for me, drives my curiosity a lot, is how to make a mood-scale theory, mood-scale approach. Which methods?
Multi-scale.
Mood-scale. Which is also the name of the team that I work in the hospital, to Linda. Hey, Linda. In mood-scale neuroscience, but I would come more which mathematical methods would be, and also in physics, would be friendly to understand mood-scale science. And most mathematicians they plot the theories from the ivory tower, like Joe says, from the ivory tower.
What does it mean?
Like that's the ivory tower that you build up mathematics of one abstraction on top of the next abstraction, one theorem on top of the next theorem.
Oh yeah.
And an applied mathematician.
That's my thesis.
Yeah. But applied mathematicians they can have like let's say raw diamonds. Oh my God! I did this analysis and suddenly I have this idea. So that's you don't know what to expect from the data, and then you come.
But then this idea exists at the bottom of ivory tower, and we can build it up.
Yeah, you build
and
it
then
up.
later something can come up. Maybe not. Maybe yes.
Yeah. So then you branch. So
maybe it's ivory castle.
Or it's ivory fractal because it just branches. But like. Then you ask for my next idea. So based on my past projects and current collaborations, I got very interested in multi-scale science in a broader context, and more technically using techniques of topological data analysis, algebraic topology, and statistical physics to understand multi-scale systems. The project I'm very excited now to finish, I hope to finish like very soon, is on using the phenomenological renormalization group to understand multi-scale structures that primarily was made to understand brains, like MRIs, but we came with a theory that works for any type of correlation data, like data whose correlations are following the central limit theorem. So not only, that's the point, like the brain is your empirical data, but the brain you observe sometimes like has time series, has matrices, or anything you do as a mathematician to the brain also could work for graphs in a more broad sense, or to time series in a more broader sense. So what I'm very excited to do next is to...
I feel excitement about this.
Yeah.
It's clearly, if you can find many examples of many systems that start at some level of abstraction looking the same way, building tools for all of them at once is super nice.
Yeah, that's one big, let's say, big business of applied mathematicians. Like, you abstract the higher, the empirical level and go in more higher level, which mathematical structure represents the system, but end up to be more abstract, so represents more systems.
And this is the part that doesn't exist in pure mathematics, because in pure mathematics everything is already abstracted, and we're just playing with what we can learn about those things. But you are like the frontier between the real world and mathematics.
Exactly, and many theorems come because of this, like especially nowadays in TDA and discrete mathematics, like discrete geometry, I would say, is a topic that's younger than differential geometry. And then there are many theorems that are made in parallel, like you know what happens in the continuous case, you do in the discrete case.
Yeah, there are many conjectures.
Yeah.
Some conjectures connecting continuous to discrete are inside of famous Langlands program. At least I know many speculations how to interpret this parameter in continuous way or discrete way, and then you have formulas that make sense just by this analogy.
Yeah.
It is quite common.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice, and sometimes it's a surprise. Sometimes you do very naive projects and you get a surprise. So I remember in 1 year I have 2 surprises. One is now this renormalization project, another project with Felix, like in TDA we know that there's this persistent homology, that you compute homology from point clouds, and the understanding is that when you compute homologies, big homologies represent signal and small homologies represents the noise, and we figure out accidentally that it's nearly impossible to separate what's small homology to what's big homology. Mm-hmm. And that's accidentally we end up to fractality of the homology. So the distribution of homology in most real systems, not in synthetic data, but in real data like the brain, the stock market, the homologies are fractally distributed, which puts in let's say in evidence, so like it's not 100% true that then small homologies are noise and bigger noise. Homologies are.
So pretty much you can go to the real world and discover mathematical theorems.
Yes, that's exactly.
Actually discover them and without any caveats to this word.
Yeah. So you just come out, let's analyze this data with this thing that we like and think maybe this is good.
Awesome.
And then after you analyze it, the result comes, but because you have mathematical training, you report your results in a more high level.
Okay.
So that's for advertisement. This is preprint beyond signal and noise with Felix and Royal. But that's one thing that happened.
Okay.
And the one I'm excited is this renormalization project.
So this is the next goal in this area, the outreach. You're here.
Yeah, outreach. Yeah, outreach.
That's the next thing.
Yeah. So the next thing. So I like to dedicate a bit of my time to outreach. I'm in mid-career, let's say, and it's a stage where you also should stop to look only for yourself and look for the others. This
is I would say, natural next step of this conclusion about delegating this work in your research network and then interpreting the network even in a greater perspective.
And then it's my responsibility, and for every mid-career mathematician, to also participate in outreach activities to also bring young people to...
because otherwise this stereotypes will just stay with us that mathematician is someone like a white old man who is isolated in his office, which is super not true. There are examples, but this is not that true today.
It can happen. It's fair enough if you want to be that person, but you don't need to be that person.
Yeah.
You can be anything.
Yeah. So this is really important to know that mathematicians come with in all flavors.
Yes, and actually, if you get, I like a lot on a personal level to read biographies and stuff.
Oh, I love it as well.
Many biographies of famous mathematicians, they're totally sociable. They do maths like if they would just in a bar. Like Euler, he would do maths anywhere, anytime, anyway, blind.
That was our genius in our history.
Yeah.
And what about the education?
Yes,
and creating the new generation.
Yeah, so we now have this mission, I hope it works well, but still establishing within UVA this new bachelor's in science, technology, innovation, which is a bachelor that's fully interdisciplinary.
It is something new.
It's a new bachelor's.
Awesome. Maybe this is an advertisement.
Yes, advertisement for this bachelor. Okay, everything I mentioned here, I should send links to you so that it's there.
Sure.
And so basically, this bachelor's, the mathematics part of this bachelor's is interdisciplinary, so you have to give classes where you already show with what type of mathematics you are teaching to the students already in the real world with data applications. So it's a mix between mathematics and data science. And this course is new, so I'm the one designing the course. Of course, the first time you design is not perfect, the second gets better, and the third you're done or so.
First you do a job, then you iterate, and then you iterate, and at some point it gets stable.
Yeah, so that's where I am now. So for the teaching part, I'm it was heavy work to do this the last 2 months. So I did this September, October, and hopefully if everything goes well, I will do it for a second course and then iterate that. So in terms of my teaching, I did this priority. I also discussed a bit with Diletta, and I want to give back to the Global South to what they gave to me. My whole training was there. So I used to go a lot to Brazil and visit my family, but when once I'm there, I also like to work. So I visit my old friends work-wise and also work with them. So now I try to also organize some workshops in Brazil when I'm there, so that there's a moment to also have fun within the work. So that would be the teaching part. I don't know if I missed anything. But
no, it sounds beautiful. Thank you for doing this job, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks.
It was a pleasure to having you here.
It was a lot of fun. Very also a good moment to me because it's always about me. So you told me I don't need to train because it's all about you.
Yeah, it's all about you. Yeah. You are the expert on you.
Yeah, that's nice. But also it's because our lives are so busy that I never take the time to think about myself in that way. Because I came from my childhood.
And now one shot, two beers.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it was not only nice to be with you, but it's a good moment that I came across, at least in a scientific level, my whole life in 1 hour. So it was very, very nice to do that as well.
Oh.
I hope people enjoy and take the good parts and not the not good parts, so whatever you like. I hope this is inspiring. What you don't like, don't do it.
Be responsible.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much.